Andrea Mitchell is going to do an interview with Kellyanne Conway, and I just have a feeling that they're kind of like friends. I know they've probably known each other for 20, 30 plus years. And the way that Andrea handles this particular interview, specifically how she lets Kellyanne Conway run off at the mouth for long stretches of time, and at the end of her comment, she'll come back and, I guess, make qualifying rebuttals to some of the things that Ms. Conway says. But in my opinion, she gave her just way too much time to get out her talking points, and she should have been cut off several times. Here's the interview, and also please note, Kellyanne Conway talks out of both sides of her mouth, and I'm going to point out the instances where she does it.
Joining me now is Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thank you very much, and belated congratulations. We haven't chatted since you took the job.
Andrea, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. I appreciate it.
And
that just confirms that they have a relationship.
We've got the health care issue front and center. We're told that Donald Trump is going to be, talking to Dr. Oz tomorrow. Let me play you what Brian Kilmeade had to say on Fox News Radio today with Dr. Oz about the way Dr. Oz is approaching this interview, which is supposed to be giving details of Donald Trump's health.
What if there's some embarrassing things on there? Well, I bet he won't release them. But it's still going to be his decision. It's his decision. It's, the metaphor for me is this the doctor's office, the studio. So I'm not going to ask him questions he doesn't want to have answered, and I also don't want to talk about anybody else. We're not going to be talking about Secretary Clinton for sure. And I don't want to talk about things that are outside the health purview.
So what are we going to learn about the medical condition, his health report tomorrow from Donald Trump?
Well, Mr. Trump had a physical late last week, Andrea, in advance of us knowing that Hillary Clinton had pneumonia, or obviously what happened on 9/11 in the tape we've all seen. So he had that physical late last week because he believes that it's important for the public to know what his basic health condition is. And he has said that the doctor is preparing his report and that it will be made available this week.
And was it with Dr. Bornstein?
That I don't know. I was not present for his physical.
Wait a minute. You're his campaign manager. You know how volatile this situation is. And you're telling me that he had a physical last week and you don't know who his doctor is? Yeah, right. You accuse the Clinton campaign, and specifically the people running the campaign, of not knowing what was going on. And now you basically are guilty of the same damn thing.
So we don't know if this is the same doctor who released that report in December, that, well, very brief, 4 or 5 paragraph letter.
Well, but remember, Andrew, I'm with Dr. Oz and millions of Americans on this. I don't know why we need such extensive medical reporting when we all have a right to privacy. And
okay, remember that quote. Remember that quote. She just said she doesn't know why such detailed information is needed when we have a right to privacy. Okay, here we go. Let's let her finish.
And frankly, I'm also with most of the American people who are very upset that many of them had to change doctors after many years with their doctors under Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Why would somebody change a doctor when they're in good shape or they've been healthy for so long? I think that's being lost in the conversation on a different network this morning. Dr. Boyd.
Okay, notice that she did one line, maybe two, on Trump and him, I guess, releasing his information, and she immediately pivoted to attacking Hillary Clinton. Remember that as well.
She was being ridiculed by an anchor who's not a medical professional. I think it's a little out of hand.
Well, NBC News, as you know, interviewed Dr. Bornstein, and the fact is that Dr. Bornstein's one-page letter was very brief. There is a tradition here, started many decades ago. Dr. Lawrence Altman of the New York Times was one of the great proponents of it, going all the way back to, the 1972 campaign. And in fact, there's a tradition. John McCain let reporters read through thousands and thousands of pages, that the American people have the right to know what the health is of their prospective commander-in-chief.
I agree with your premise, and so the question remains, why in the world did Hillary Clinton lie to everyone and conceal such an important fact for 2 days?
Okay, see, now she just reversed herself because she previously said that people are entitled to their privacy, and now she is taking the other position about, and that was a lie, what she just said. Hillary Clinton didn't lie about a condition, she just didn't reveal it. But they like to throw those buzzwords in there to get people going. So she just took two opposite viewpoints on the same subject. Privacy versus revelation of people's medical histories. That's one. She does it several more times.
Saying she was overheated and dehydrated, and then of course hours and hours later, after unfortunately her health had become the biggest trending story of the day, not the 9/11 fallen. Why wait all those hours? So I agree with you, it's an important issue, and I think that there's one candidate in this race who's had recent health challenges that we all saw. I agree with Donald Trump on this, and certainly I would hope all of us, Andrea, regardless of your political persuasion, that we're glad Hillary Clinton says she's feeling better and she'll be back on the campaign trail soon. But the question remains, if this is about transparency and medical records and health conditions, then why was she so furtive in the business of concealment here? Also, I'd just like to mention, because you briefly...
She concealed it because it was a private matter. Her health is her own business, okay? Donald Trump hasn't released jack shit about his health. Hillary Clinton in the past has released numerous medical records regarding her health. So let's compare apples to apples instead of casting aspersions here.
Touched upon it, but out of respect for the viewers and the voters who are demanding real solutions from these candidates, I'm really happy that this evening I'll be with Ivanka and Donald Trump and many others talking about one of the vexing issues of our day, which is child care. It's a huge part of the family budget. It's a very delicate issue for many families who need to know they've got quality, dependable care. And frankly, our tax code needs to be modernized to keep up with that.
Well, I'm going to get to that in just a moment. Let me just continue on the health issue, because there's been plenty of coverage questioning here as well as everywhere else that I've noticed, questioning why Hillary Clinton did not reveal sooner to the public as well as to her own campaign aides that she had pneumonia. Here was her response on CNN with Anderson Cooper last night.
Compare everything you know about me with my opponent. I think it's time he met the same level of disclosure that I have for years. You know, you've got a medical report on me that meets the same standard as Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. Donald Trump's doctor said he'd be the healthiest president in history. That's just not even serious. I've talked to my staff. We take responsibility for that. But the information is out there.
And to the point that Dr. Bornstein's previous letter in December of 2015 said that he would be the healthiest president in American history. That's hardly a medical report.
Well, what I hardly can't believe is
Here she goes. She's going to pivot away from what she was just asked and start attacking Hillary Clinton again. Here we go.
Hillary Clinton and really all of her senior team and her surrogates, it takes them about 10 seconds or 10 words to change an answer about them on almost anything, Andrea, over to Donald Trump. I'm glad that we're living in their heads. I'm glad.
And she just did the same exact thing.
Donald Trump occupies some serious real estate in her head, but she was being asked by Anderson Cooper, why not just tell us, and are you feeling better, and what else
Well, she did answer those questions, but she did, as you point out, she turned it to, why should I be...
She always does.
Why should I put out all of this information when no one is asking him to put out this information? So the question is, what are we going to get tomorrow? How specific will be the information about his physical condition?
I don't know, because I have not conferred with the doctor, Andrea, but I'm glad that Mr. Trump is going to reveal it this week, and I would again tell everybody who may be suspicious about the timing that he had a physical late last week. I'm sure it'll be dated in the paperwork.
And again, I'm back to the point that you are his campaign manager, you are his #1 spokesman, but you don't have the information. And you know that the questions were going to be asked. So what are you guys hiding?
Just answer something else since you played that clip of Secretary Clinton. When she talks about, everybody knows everything about me, that's part of the problem. I think that's why, according to even the NBC poll, majorities of Americans don't like her and don't trust her. And I think those twin pillar problems of trustworthiness and transparency got worse in the last 72 hours, not better. I understand why she's being defensive and she wants to turn this back to Donald Trump. Well, then she needs to understand that in your own NBC SurveyMonkey poll, it's tightening because people are just not convinced that this woman, who's got a lot of advantages and privileges in this race, no doubt, just can't put him away.
All right, that was a long filibuster, but Ms. Conway just acknowledged that the American people know a lot about Hillary Clinton, but they know jack shit about Donald Trump. She just made Clinton's point.
In polls, they are tired in unfavorable ratings, and you're absolutely right about the trust factor. It is one of the biggest things dragging on her. The reason for the health questions for him, aside from the fact that there is a tradition that he has not lived up to what Mitt Romney did, what Barack Obama did, is that he would be the oldest person ever to take the oath of office. That said, let's get back to what is being unveiled today, the child care proposals, Ivanka Trump, Donald Trump. One of the downsides, and there is, extended maternity leave, paid leave, and all the rest. One of the downsides, according to most experts, is that if you are a low-income American and you don't pay federal taxes, that's a lot of the people in this country, you would get no benefit at all under this plan. It would be very helpful to those who are employed.
Well, no, they would get an expansion under the EITC, the Earned Income Tax Credit, and we also would try to clean up all of the abuse in the unemployment system so that we could actually fund very fairly and fully these benefits for folks.
Is Donald going to specifically address that? Because I damn sure I'm going to watch his speech and see what he says.
And I'm just so proud to work in a campaign, Andrea, that is tackling this. Republicans usually do not tackle this, particularly at the presidential level. It's like, let's just look the other way. What, does it not poll well? I mean, in other words, we're trying to capture the culture here and have policy responses to whatever is frustrating or concerning or even animating and exciting people. And so if you look at this plan, and the whole plan will be revealed, there'll be an op-ed. There's a plan, there's background, there are experts to be consulted. It's really exciting that, you've got Hillary Clinton talking about how she's always been fighting for children, she fights for children. We can't really find a lot about her child care policy on her website. Maybe they're putting it up now as I speak to you, but we know they talk about it, but we're actually going to do it. This is the tradition of the Trump campaign now. We talk about policy every single day. Law enforcement, defeating radical Islam, middle-class tax relief. We'll be talking about what's next after Obamacare soon. We talked about school choice and charters last week, the military yesterday. Today is child care. So we're always doing something to answer those questions that voters legitimately have, Andrea, which is, what will you do as Commander-in-Chief? What will you do as President of the United States? Hillary Clinton told us a couple days ago she doesn't want to be president of all the people. She has, I think, a privileged scorn for tens of millions of Americans in her terrible comments. But we also agree with the second part of her unfortunate comments, which is that there are millions of Americans that are, quote, to quote her, quote, desperate for change. They're desperate for change because this administration, of which she's been a part, has not addressed the economic woes of all Americans and certainly has done very little to help people meet the needs of quality, dependable child care.
Let me ask you about that child care issue.
Would you call that a filibuster? Andrea just let her go on and on and on and on. I honestly believe that they got to be friends, and Andrea is basically giving her a lot more latitude than she deserves.
And the fact that in the latest Washington Post ABC poll, 60% of Americans believe that Donald Trump is biased against women and minorities. Doesn't that show that your campaign has a major problem with these parts of the electorate, with women and minorities?
Yeah. Those people must read the Washington Post. But in any event, so of course we're going for all voters. And we go to places where Republicans don't traditionally go, right into the black churches, down to...
That's bullshit. Donald Trump went into one quote-unquote black church that was totally scripted, that was not what I would consider to be a normalized situation within a black church. The people that were inside that church, and the church was half full. I would normally say half empty, but some people say they considered it half full. So I'll go with the half full. But they were all invitees. The public was not allowed to attend. The speech he gave was scripted, scrubbed, whitewashed, and everything else that you can think of to make sure that no controversial remarks were going to be given within it. So for her to say he's going to black churches, that was one church. In my mind, churches is plural. He went to one, which is singular.
Louisiana to help, over to Mexico to meet with the president, then up the same day in Arizona to give a speech on immigration. So we're vying for all votes, not just, you know, I really feel like Tim Kaine's comments after Hillary Clinton's comments made it worse on Saturday, where it doesn't even sound like they had basically conferred, but he said she doesn't need to apologize because there are some votes that we're not going to get. Really? That's how we're looking at people. We're looking at them as voters and not human beings and not as Americans. That's not a very unifying message. I think the Democratic parties, you know, in the past, they've been really successful in elevating and indeed electing folks who ran on unity, like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and JFK. And now it's a very divisive sounding way to try to capture all Americans. I realize her fat cat donors on Wall Street really yucked it up and had a good old time at the expense of hardworking Americans. But let me tell you something, Andrea, whenever Hillary Clinton is seen in her own words and can't blame her, quote, political enemies, the vast right-wing conspiracy, it's bad for her because that's her own tape. And I respectfully disagree when people characterize what she said as a gaffe. She was reading prepared remarks, and she had said it previously. A gaffe
She had not said half. She had not said half.
Okay, that's the third time that Andrea let her go on with a soliloquy. And by the way, if Andrea was up to snuff, she would have brought up Donald Trump's comments that 50% of this country is carrying the other 50%, which have no incentive to work and are basically freeloaders. Andrea didn't have that particular piece, and I know that it was available to her.
The supporters previously, she had referred to the deplorables, but she had not used that categorization, the quantifying it in terms of half the supporters. You know, according to the Associated Press that did a survey on issues, and we noted this after Donald Trump talked about policies and how he talks most about policies as you just had, that Donald Trump had 7 issues on his website totaling some 9,000 words. Hillary Clinton had 38 issues on her website with 112,000 words. Now, yes, he's talking more about policies since you've taken over, and you know, there's been a noticeable change in the presentations on the campaigns done, but certainly not for the year previous.
Well, the 100 and some thousand words definitely sounds like what a politician or a bureaucrat does. They do it with our tax codes. They do it on their websites. If we're going to run this...
It also sounds like what someone does when they're completely explaining their policies and conditions.
Election, expecting voters to go to our websites and figure out what these people believe on policy. I respect the voters more than that. I think they'd prefer that these candidates come to them and, or at least make public statements where you have a 4 or 5 point, 10-point roadmap in the case of our Veterans Administration reform plan, Andrea. This idea that we're going to do it on websites and just Mrs. Clinton's going to fly around just raising money and not talking to voters, I think it's a losing formula, and I hope they stick with it.
Kellyanne, I've been on the road with her for a year and a half, and I've watched your campaign, you know, from a distance. I've been on the Democratic campaign, watching it, covering it. She has been talking to voters. I mean, that's what the listening tour was about. I mean, at the same time, you know, there was a lot of criticism from Donald Trump that she was meeting with small groups. That's what she was doing, was talking.
Finally, Andrea pushed back on her. Now watch Conway divert to a different point. She gets away from the fact that Andrea caught her in a bullshit line here, and she has to move away to something else.
To voters, she was not at big rallies, and so you can't have it.
I guess the question remains why she can't get to 55, 60, 65% of women. She's running as the first female. I don't understand. Well, I do understand, and I do know why.
Oh, why she can't get to 55, 60% of females? Are you attempting to be sexist? Are you trying to say that because she's a woman that she should be able to get the female vote just because she's a woman? Boy, you left a lot of ammunition open on this one.
But it's a great question to ask. Is it the truthfulness, the transparency problems? Is it that they just are saying that, yeah, I want a woman, but not that woman? It's not a hypothetical. It's Hillary Clinton. Time's running short here, and I don't think they're in a position where they expected to be after spending $200-some thousand plus between their super PACs and the campaign on ads just to say Donald Trump.
Kelly, it was probably close to $200 million in ads.
takes the wings off of butterflies. I mean, why are they so tight in your own polling?
No,
So we're excited with our formula.
He's going back to Pennsylvania today. Do you think you can win Pennsylvania?
We're sure going to try suburbs of Philadelphia today, talking about an important issue to all Americans.
Yeah, you're going to be in the suburbs of Philadelphia. You're going to try to wean off some of the suburban housewives out there. Funny that you're not going to be in Philadelphia itself. But you did say that you guys were trying to woo the African American vote.
Male and female child care, and we are vying for the votes in Pennsylvania. And every time somebody says, well, Democrats won it the last 6 times in a row, anytime one tries to apply convention to Donald Trump, they lose out, because as we know, Andrea, he's a very unconventional politician, a non-politician running a very unconventional campaign. And so we feel good about Pennsylvania, and you're going to see the candidate there a great deal.
And you could argue, according to our polling, that this election could be won or lost in the suburbs of places like Philadelphia, where those swing voters are, and they usually vote Republican, and we'll have to see whether he can appeal to them today. Thank you very much. I hope this is the beginning of a conversation that we can continue.
Andrea Mitchell really did not push her, and that really leads me to further believe that these two people are friends, and Andrea didn't want to try to nail her at all.